You know the scene, right? Every January, the world's most powerful people get together in the Swiss Alps, supposedly to solve our biggest problems. But at Davos 2026, well, those solutions felt further away than ever. This year, the talk wasn't just about a world on edge. It revealed a world that's actually starting to crack.
And the official theme this year? A spirit of dialogue. Sounds great, right? On paper, it's exactly what you'd want to hear. A call for everyone to talk and work together, especially when times are this crazy. The problem is, what happens when that nice idea smacks right into reality?
Yeah, about that. Because underneath that hopeful banner, the reality on the ground was something else entirely. That spirit of dialogue wasn't just being tested. In many ways, it was being shattered by these deep, fundamental fractures running right across the globe.
So here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at that huge gap between the ideal and the reality. Then, we'll dive into the biggest pressure points, from geopolitical showdowns and the double-edged sword of AI to our planet's warning signs and a global economy that's basically splitting in two. And finally, we'll try to make sense of what this all means for our new reality.
All right, first up, let's really dig into that central conflict. This beautiful idea of cooperation clashing head-on with a much, much harsher reality.
So just in case you're new to this whole thing, the World Economic Forum, what everyone just calls Davos, is where leaders from government, big business, and all sorts of other groups get together to try and tackle the world's biggest issues. This year, though, it felt like the problems were bigger and the solutions were just nowhere in sight.
Okay, so let's get into the first major fracture point, geopolitics. This is where that whole spirit of dialogue idea didn't just get tested. In some cases, it got completely thrown off the tracks.
And you want a perfect example? Look no further than what people started calling the Greenland Row. A large U.S. delegation, led by Donald Trump, showed up with some really aggressive talk, questioning defense commitments and threatening new tariffs on cars. The pushback from European leaders was instant and fierce. So fierce, in fact, that it completely derailed a super important economic support package for Ukraine that was being hammered out right there at the forum. It just shows you how fast cooperation can completely fall apart.
And what this whole mess really shows us are two totally competing visions for how the world should even work. On one side, you've got European leaders like Ursula von der Leyen and Emmanuel Macron who are all about a rules-based world order. But they feel like they're fighting against this rising tide of go-it-alone unilateralism and what they're calling imperial ambitions. It reveals this massive crack, not just between rivals, but right inside the Western alliance itself.
Now for our third topic, a technology that's got everyone buzzing with both incredible hope and, frankly, a lot of fear. Artificial intelligence. The big question at Davos was, is this thing the new nuclear option?
And I'm not exaggerating here. This wasn't just some throwaway line. You had top tech leaders and policymakers explicitly comparing AI's potential to massive game changers like nuclear technology. That alone tells you everything you need to know about the scale of this thing, both its incredible economic promise and its terrifying risks.
But here's the paradox. For all the hype, for all the billions being poured into it, a lot of business leaders were quietly admitting, hey, we're just not seeing the returns. And it's not because the AI is failing. It's a failure of preparation. Companies haven't done the foundational work, their data is a total mess, and they have no clear strategy for how to actually use the tech. And this is where it gets genuinely alarming. At the very same time, security experts were sounding a major alarm. They warned that AI-powered cyber risks, we're talking about malware that can learn and adapt all by itself inside a network, are accelerating way, way faster than our ability to defend against them.
All right, moving on to our fourth major theme, and this is an area where the conversation has shifted big time. We're talking about our planet's red flags, a topic that's now pretty much considered beyond debate.
So here's the absolute kicker. The debate over phasing out fossil fuels, for this group, it's basically over. But the reason why has changed. It's not just about environmentalism anymore. It's about raw, hard economics. The financial risks of climate change, from insurance costs going through the roof to supply chains being thrown into chaos, have just become too massive to ignore.
And this new focus on risk put a huge spotlight on another related crisis, so much so that a lot of people were calling 2026 the year of water. The conversation suddenly blew up to include everything from access to fresh water, the health of our oceans, and the stability of our entire global food system, all of which are under serious threat.
And in this crazy, interconnected web of risk, you had public health experts warning, yet again, that we are still not ready for the next pandemic. And this vulnerability is only getting worse because of climate change, economic stress, and all that political fragmentation we just talked about.
That brings us to our fifth section, an economy of division. Because even though everyone was in the same fancy rooms, it really felt like they were living in two completely different economic worlds.
You want to see what that division looks like? Groups like Oxfam put out data that is just wow. It's stunning. Look at that huge bar on the left. That's how much billionaire wealth has grown. Now look at that tiny little bar next to it. That's what it would cost to end extreme global poverty. The gap isn't just big. For a growing number of people, it's just plain wrong.
And this inequality isn't just about the numbers, it's fueling a much deeper ideological battle. For maybe the first time, you had some US officials at Davos who were openly saying that globalization has failed parts of the Western world. That signals a massive split on what the future of our whole economic system should even look like.
So, what does this all add up to? Our final section looks at the world's new reality, where one thing is crystal clear. There are no easy answers anymore.
And you know, it's really important to remember what Davos actually is. The official meetings you see on the news, that's less than half the story. You've got protests and deep skepticism on the outside, you've got cultural events on the inside, and maybe most importantly, a huge chunk of what really happens are the backroom deals that shape policy far, far away from any camera.
So, if we have to boil it all down, what are the big takeaways from Davos 2026? I think there are three main things. First, the old ways of countries working together are breaking down. Second, there's a desperate sense of urgency to get a handle on both technology and the environment. And third, these fundamentally different ideas about how the world should run are now in open conflict.
And this is probably the most important thing to get about Davos. You don't walk away with a neat little package of new laws or policies. It's all about signals. It's a place to see where power is shifting, what the new rules of the game might be, and what the world's decision makers are actually prioritizing.
And that leaves us with the one ultimate question. The talks at Davos 2026 made it painfully clear that the old systems are breaking. So as the old order fractures, the only question that really matters now is this: who gets to write the new rules?